So, today you are going to learn all about this revolutionary new therapy called Brown's gas. Actually, I shouldn't say it's a brand new therapy. It's actually an older therapy that has been totally revolutionized and enhanced. And you're going to learn about Brown's gas, you're going to learn about molecular hydrogen and hydrogen infused water and all of the diverse benefits that you can get from this amazing therapy. So, whether that be for your own health, there's a myriad of different benefits for different health conditions. You're going to also look at it for actually increasing the growth of plants by 3 to 10 times, as well as an alternative fuel source. So, absolutely amazing. When we first came across the information that George Wiseman was sharing, we reached out to him right away to discuss, and I just wanted to pick his brain on all of this new information around Brown's gas. So we actually purchased a unit ourselves and we incorporate it at home for ourselves as well as in our clinical practice where we see members at our private member association, which you can check out at Inspirelife.earth and find out all of the amazing offerings that we have here when we do our healing immersions and retreats. So at the end of this, if the AquaCure unit is something that speaks to you, then click the link below and George is offering a discount for purchasing the AquaCure unit so that you can have access to it whenever you want. And I believe you'll get about over $150 discount by using the promo code INSPIRE. And that's not case sensitive. So click the link below, use the promo code INSPIRE, and you get a discount on the AquaCure unit yourself. All right, everybody, you're in for a treat. Enjoy this episode. George is really solid guy, really integrous, and I think he's got an amazing product out there. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye bye. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Inspire Health Podcast. And we are continuing on with our series on living freely. And we came across our guest today, George Wiseman. And it wasn't that long ago. And finally, we actually managed to connect up after lost emails and whatnot. And finally, we've connected up. And we're really excited to have George on here today. If you haven't heard of George Wiseman, he was born in Montana and grew up on a ranch in the backwoods of British Columbia, out where we are, learning the value of hard work, honor, integrity, knowledge, and skills. And he became a jack of all trades and subsequently an inventor that's changed entire venues with his innovations. He started working with Brown's gas in 1986, optimizing electrolyzers to apply this amazing gas in applications such as fuel saving, torch fuel gas, and radioactive neutralization. He's become recognized worldwide and renowned in the practical applications of Brown's gas. Starting in 1996, his customers told him of their astonishing healings using Brown's gas. And it took him until about 2005 to convince Mr. Wiseman to try Brown's gas on himself, and he subsequently had substantial health improvements. He's now developed a machine specifically optimized to safely provide Brown's gas for health in every home. And we are excited to have him on today to share this fascinating invention. So, George, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here. I'm also very grateful to be on venues like yourself so we can help more people.
That's definitely what we're all about. And it's fun for us because we come across different information that we get excited about or that we've been introducing ourselves. And then, like we've mentioned, we invite our listeners to join our exploration. And we don't claim to know the answers to everything, but we want to share what we're excited about so that people can sort of then step into their own authority and find out what they would like to investigate more and learn more. Because as we go along this journey, you really do find that I find like with knowledge, there's a lot of power. And as we learn more, we step more into our own inner authority and less of an outer authority. And we're looking for ways that we can really improve our own health and live a healthier life and do things from a place where we're not sort of constantly outsourcing it to everybody else.
Yes. When I grew up on the ranch, health was just a given. Like we seldom got sick or anything. It wasn't anything we ever worried about. Living out, literally, we were so far out in the woods, we didn't even have a radio, let alone no radio, no electricity, no running water, no any of that. We lived in a trapper's cabin that was built in the 1800s.
Oh, wow. You were really backwoods.
We would literally go out and saddle up horses in the morning and ride the ranch and do the sort of things. We had machinery, but my father didn't like starting an engine any more than he absolutely had to. We were the poor kids in school. We had handmade clothes and stuff like that. It was something. But anyway, but it was the way we grew up. I didn't really think of anything else. And then but also I also learned to fix equipment and all kinds of things when I like watching MacGyver, for example. He just like do things, and back in the day we'd call it a farmer fix or something, where you just 100 ways to use baling wire. I can tell you some interesting things that happened with baling wire. But nevertheless, the point is, it turns out that I had a natural genius for mechanical things. When I went to college for automotive mechanics, for example, they gave you a test for measuring what's called mechanical IQ, and I literally they I was off the scale. And no one had ever completed the test in the 5 minutes that they give you in the history of the college, let alone get every question right. So so I qualified for the course. One of the things.
Probably to
We're
teach the course.
Well, actually, I did end up being a teacher's assistant. I was going through the course 3 times faster than any of the other students. It was a self-paced course, right? And so I ended up helping other students as they were going. It kind of helped that I was in my late 20s when I went back to automotive school because or college, and most of the kids coming in were just out of high school, right? So I was I was kind of an old man if you were going to consider it that way. And I'd already had decades of experience fixing vehicles and stuff. In fact, they changed 6 of the answers in the test to my answers because I was able to convince the school that my answers were more correct than theirs.
Oh.
How many students can you say had that happen? Well, there were a few that I still think were more correct, but they didn't change them. And I was like, I'm going to still do it my way because I think it's better. All right. Nevertheless, jack of all trades indeed, because anything that needed doing on the ranch, you just did it yourself or it didn't get done. There were no policemen, there were no firemen, there were no plumbers or electricians or anything, no mechanics, nothing. And when I left the ranch in a 1966 Ford pickup truck, I didn't know that half-ton pickup trucks weren't supposed to get 34 miles to the gallon. I did not know that. I just did it. So because I just made things work the way that they should. And as far as the machines I design and sell, I learned I'm a lazy person, okay? And not that I wouldn't do the job, it's just that I didn't want to do the job twice or 3 times or 4 times. So when something would break, I would figure out why it broke and fix it so it wouldn't break again. And now that's the way I build my machines and why I offer a lifetime guarantee on them, or warranty, excuse me, warranty on them, manufacturer's warranty, is because I design them so that they won't break. They're simple and they work well and they just keep working like they're supposed to. Of course, anything can break, and that's why we have the warranty. So my point was, growing up on the ranch gave me a background or a foundation for all of the innovations that I did since. And then in the 80s, mid to late 80s, I learned about Brown's gas, and I would have set aside all my alternative energy inventions and stuff and research I was doing. There's not enough time for that as well. But the fuel savers we were doing really well on, but everything was switching over from carbureted vehicles to fuel injected. And so I had to start concentrating on fuel savers that would work with fuel injected vehicles. And one of those was Brown's gas. So if you build a small electrolyzer that you can put on the engine and put water in it, so it splits the water into hydrogen, oxygen, gas in a certain way that also has something called electrically expanded water, which we'll get into in a little bit more. So those 3 gases would come out the same hose and go into the air intake of your engine and increase the efficiency of combustion, because the tiny bit of Brown's gas would work like a catalyst that would help break apart the hydrocarbon bonds, the hydrogens from the carbon, and lower the endothermic, or the energy necessary to make a flame, and therefore you'd have more exothermic or heat energy left over. And internal combustion engines are heat engines, so the more heat you have from the gallon of fuel, the further you can go on a gallon of gas. Pretty straightforward as far as that goes. So the Brown's gas was working really well there. We made a lot of innovations on that, including things that I call the EFI device, which is an oxygen sensor correction circuit, which all fuel savers that had oxygen, all engines or all vehicles that had oxygen sensors needed this little device. And I actually made more money selling that side effect thing than I did on the actual fuel savers, because all the fuel savers out there needed this particular device. So it
Wow.
wasn't just my fuel saver, it was all of them. All right. So Brown's gas. And then I originally got into Brown's gas because I heard it could weld plastic to titanium. And as an inventor, I learn all kinds of welding techniques and have all different kinds of tools because you build things that aren't on the shelf. Now I use things off the shelf as much as possible when I'm doing my innovations. And like you pointed out before, earlier in our conversation, a lot of times you can take modern techniques and make something old work better. Like the Leonardo da Vinci bird can actually fly now, whereas when it was originally invented, they didn't have the light plastics and stuff to make it work. But you can actually go and buy those birds that he designed hundreds of years ago, and it can actually fly now. As far as fuel savers go, I was able to make fuel savers that had been done over 100 years ago work on today's engines and work better than they did back then. So in any case, I wanted to make a welding torch or a torch that instead of acetylene, I'd be using this Brown's gas. But they were quoting me like $300,000 to build this torch that I wanted to do. Yeah, that was outside of my budget, way outside my budget at the time. So I but I'm an inventor, so I researched everything I could about Brown's gas, and I knew how to do electrolysis, and I had a bunch of alternative energy research that I incorporated all this together, and I made a machine that was half the weight, half the size, produced the same volume of gas with half the electricity of the one that they were quoting me $300,000 on. So I did really well and started selling those machines. And that's where in 1996, one of my water torch customers got back in touch with me and said he had cured a melanoma on his forehead. So it was a skin cancer, and he just wetted a cotton ball and put it in a cap and then re-wet it every so often and just taped it on his forehead so that the Brown's gas would do that. And I've tried to figure out why he would think about doing that. Take a combustible gas.
That's what I was just gonna ask. Like, where did that come? Where did that idea stem from?
Okay, the only thing I can think of is that right about that time, we were doing a lot of experimenting with using the gas itself for plants and externally. There was a chiropractor in Spokane who was using oxygen therapies externally to help relieve muscle tension and things like that. And he came up to my shop and experimented with the Brown's gas and was so impressed that he went back and had a machine built. Now, at that time, I was just selling plans as well. People can still buy the plans from me and build their own machine. They don't have to buy a machine. I sell the plans to tell them how to do it. There's no patents on any of this. So on my side, anyway. Now, Yul Brown did try to sue me, but nothing he had was everything was different in my machines and better than his machines, so it didn't go anywhere. But I still call the gas Brown's gas because I would not have learned about the gas without the 30 years of promotion that he put into it. The original inventor of what single ducted gas was William Rhodes in Phoenix, Arizona, back in the very early 1960s. And then Yul Brown referenced his work. And I met William Rhodes before he died. He was a real rocket scientist who had over 100 patents and was still negotiating with or solving problems for NASA when he was over 90 years old.
Wow.
So, yeah, he was incredible. And it turned out that his research notes on how he originally developed the Brown's gas, what he called single ducted gas, back in the 1960s, was virtually identical to mine. I recreated it without ever knowing him when I was doing my research. And then I've been able to do some additional things since then. But he taught me a couple of things and about how the electricity flows through the electrolyzers and things like that he knew, and it helped me design even better machines. So there's a whole history then, and it turned out by the time all this is done, I spent over $250,000, so over $250,000, which I was getting back from selling of machines and of various kinds. But it turned out that my research ended up being, in the end, over $300,000, as if I'd have bought a machine in the first place, right? The difference is doing it myself. I learned all of these things, and sometimes the side effects of what you learn like the curing of the melanoma, is more is greater than the actual device itself. So I didn't believe him. I didn't believe him. And and what we were doing is experimenting with plants, plant growth. So and that's what got the chiropractor into treating humans externally. And it was his niece actually that did a college I don't know what you call it, study kind of thing, had to do for her college course, where Brown's she took three different batches of radishes, and one she fed uh, water from a well, one she fed water from a tap, and one she fed water that was Brown's gas bubbled out four, and then well water bubbled. So that she had these four different ones, and it turns out that that the tap water did well. Distilled water, sorry, one of them was distilled, one water was tap or well water in their case. One, and then they did the two with the Brown's gas, the distilled water and the tap water with Brown's gas, which is my memory. I was just looking at the chart earlier today too. In fact, I see it over on this other screen I have up right there in behind me. If you go to my YouTube channel, George Wiseman and YouTube, you will see me inhaling Brown's gas for the first time. I have a YouTube video of that. I'll get to that a little bit more in the, but if you look at the header of the YouTube channel, you will see the in behind me, the chart that she did, the niece of Lloyd
Oh,
Jacob
okay.
on the plants. Okay. And you can see the various, how the plants were growing and stuff. But the distilled water alone didn't do very well. Tap water did better. Brown's gas did better in both distilled and in tap water, and the tap water did the best of all. So, because the plants need the nutrients, the distilled water didn't have the nutrients that it needed. But in any case, we get back to health. So this guy, for some reason, decided to put it on his skin on the melanoma, and in 3 weeks' time, the melanoma was gone. And this has been duplicated at least twice more that I know of, and one time with pictures. And if you go to aquacure.life, you can see those pictures where the guy in Germany had a large melanoma psoriasis thing on his head, and they put a shower cap on and put the gas under the shower cap, and for 20 minutes a day treated it that way. And in 3 weeks' time, it was virtually gone. So they sent him home with a machine, and I haven't heard anything since. So, but as far as that goes, and then there was another fellow, Crow, on the Crow Show. His mother had a melanoma in her hair and on her head, and they treated it. And in about 3 weeks' time, it just kind of peeled off through the hairs, and that was it. It was gone. And an interesting thing as well is she had dementia. And whenever she would be inhaling the Brown's gas, she'd come back to herself. She'd understand, she'd recognize people and what was going on around her. And the sad part about it, though, was that she would then realize what had happened to her. She then would understand her ailments, and she'd get so upset. He stopped giving her Brown's gas.
Aw.
Yeah, it was, and she's passed on now and stuff. But can you? Oh man!
Mm.
But the good news is that there's a lot of people out there getting a lot better with the Brown's gas now that we're using Brown's gas for health, which it took me decades to learn, because I was using it as a combustible enhancement and as a torch fuel gas and things like that. I had no idea when I was doing it that it would work for health. And then, like you said in the intro, in 2005, I started drinking the water. Drinking the water. It's very important. And by 2007, I hadn't gotten sick at all in 2 winters. And that was unheard of, because I got sick every winter, at least 3 colds or flus in winter, and I would be hacking and choking and fever and taking all kinds of medications and stuff. But just that was my winters. Nope, nary a sniffle. So it was, and there was no other side effects that I could really determine. So I told people, yes, it's safe to drink the bubbled water. And of course, it was already safe to put the bubbled water on the skin and to put the gas on the skin. So then people started asking me, and then we made the ER50, Eagle Research 50, a little contraption of tubes and stuff. And get back to that in a little bit. But it was a very efficient Brown's gas electrolyzer, tabletop, so people wouldn't have to spend thousands of dollars to buy an electrolyzer like the guy that bought the water torch for the fuel gas thing. or for torch fuel gas. Anyway, then we started getting hundreds of testimonials in, and but around that time, my late wife got sick as well. Now, because the Brown's gas raises the pH in water a little bit, she wouldn't drink the Brown's gas bubbled water. So I'll just say that up front. But she was getting sicker and sicker over the years, and people were asking me, can we inhale the gas? And these two aren't related, by the way, those two particular things until later. And I kept saying no because I knew the gas to be a combustible gas, and I didn't want people to have an explosion in their lungs. So I wanted to keep them safe. Okay, so first, do no harm. But in December of 2015, so you can see that it's been since 2007, people have been asking me about the inhalation. One of my customers sent me a video of a Korean hydrogen bar that was using Brown's gas. I knew the machine, so I knew it was Brown's gas. And the people were going in and buying an inhaling treatment like we buy a cup of coffee at Starbucks over here, or wherever your local coffee shop is. Anyway, I don't know if they have Starbucks over there where you guys are right at the moment, but
They do.
okay, they're
I think they're
everywhere.
They're
everywhere.
everywhere.
I think they've made it everywhere.
Yes. I mean, I remember I used to see them in Montana and Washington, but I didn't know about BC. Okay. Anyway, getting back to the story. So I knew that it was safe to inhale because at that point I realized, you idiot. And I'm supposed to be a combustion expert. Okay. I realized that if you control the volume of the gas going into your lungs, you can keep the amount of hydrogen, which is the explosive part, under the lower combustible limit of the gas. And I knew this. I was a combustion expert. I was running vehicles on hydrogen. Okay. You get not enough hydrogen, it won't burn. Okay. So all I had to do was make a machine that would keep the combustible amount of hydrogen inhaled to a safe limit, and it would be safe. So at that point, it was safe to inhale. But also at that point, I was a 24/7 caretaker of my late wife, where I had to carry her to the toilet. I couldn't be away from her side for more than 20, 30 minutes at a time to go get groceries or anything. I was tired out of my mind to the point where she was saying, she was an amazing woman, amazing. She was saying, let me go. I can see how it's hurting you. But I couldn't. I had to help her. And so by March of 2016, she had essentially lost her hair and her eyesight, and her organs were failing and stuff. And then she died. And we learned that it was a severe form of lupus. Okay, that becomes important in a little bit. But so there I was, bereft and grieving, and I was essentially living on the couch because I never slept in our bed again. And I looked over my shoulder at the Brown's gas machine I had there, the ER50, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to inhale that gas. Now, I was doing it just to prove that it would be safe. So I did all my safety things as best I could, and just helped distract me from my grief as well. And I inhaled that first time, and that's the video you'd see on my YouTube channel where I was inhaling for the first time. I figured I'd take a video of myself, so if something happened, people could see my idiocy. Anyway, 15 minutes, and I didn't sleep at all that night. I was absolutely wide awake and alert all night long, which was very disconcerting for me because I'm used to being able to fall asleep anytime, anywhere kind of thing, no problem. Well, it's a problem if you're driving, but nevertheless. And I actually inhale while I'm driving now too. It's 13-hour drive to where our in-laws are, and my daughter-in-law and the grandkids. So I just do the drive in a straight shot, and I inhale the Brown's gas all the way with an inverter. I just plug it in and inhale all the way. And it stays alert, just better than a cup of coffee as far as I'm concerned. So in any case, I started inhaling in the mornings instead of in the evening, so that the gas would be out of my system pretty much and I could sleep. And then after my body got used to it, I could inhale the gas as much as I wanted and I can sleep, no problem. So, and that's what happens is at first when people start to inhale, they're likely to find some sort of, I can't call it a side effect, I call it a weirdness, where you kind of have to adjust your gas until you get to where your body is used to having it. And sometimes it isn't a Hexamer reaction, but it's similar to kind of thing where when your body starts to heal, it isn't necessarily comfortable. Okay. Sometimes it really is. Lots of people have lots extra energy. They heal really, really fast. They have sprains. I sprained my shoulder one time, which I knew was going to take 3 weeks to heal. I've had sprains all my life. I lived on a cattle ranch. And then 3 days, in 3 days, it was completely healed. I had full strength back. So this is the kind of thing that happens. And there's lots of athletes that are talking about how fast they heal and how they can think better and faster like hockey players and stuff like that when they're doing their stuff. So in any case, after I think it was about a month I of inhaling and having no problem, I then sent out to everyone. I say, okay, here's how you fix up the ER50, adjust it so that you can have a safe inhalation mixture and you can start inhaling gas. And then the testimonials really started to pour in. Like I have probably thousands of testimonials, and I don't even have time to put them up on the website. I work from sometimes 2 a.m., but generally around 3 a.m. in the morning till 5 p.m. at night, 7 days a week. My
Wow.
wife is not happy with me. We made a deal that I stop at 5, not work till 8, so that I can spend some time with her every day, which I actually appreciate that she wants to spend time with me. So I want to get back to that. I I'm now have almost 40 people helping me, and I'm continually increasing production. And I'm really not advertising. It's just people telling other people what's happening with them, and then the other people are trying it out. And I have a 1-year satisfaction guarantee, so that anyone can use it for up to a year, because some things take a while to mitigate some particular ailments. In any case, we go back to 3 months after I told people that they could start to inhale. A woman sent in a testimonial that said in 3 weeks' time, her lupus symptoms were gone.
Oh.
So here I am, laying on the floor, crying my eyes out, because this was I can't even say almost worse than the actual original having her die, because here I am, a worldwide expert in Brown's gas, had Brown's gas in my shop since 1986, had been told by essentially God, giving me all these messages over the years that it was a healthful gas. And to be clear, my late wife never inhaled or even drank the water. But here was a thing that if I had known, could possibly have completely reversed that, and she'd still be a healthy woman today. And it has reversed many people with autoimmune diseases of all kinds, including Parkinson's and ALS and even COPD. I know it's not an autoimmune disease necessarily, but virtually every ailment known to man, I now have testimonials of people coming back and telling me. And cancer, there was a report just recently from a young lady. I say young in that she was in her late 20s. She'd been sent home to die of cancer. Not even 30 years old yet. They'd done everything they could over the years and said, there's nothing more we can do. Get ready to die. Her father learned about a fellow who was renting the AquaCure machines in Australia, and said, can I get one? And begged him for it. So the guy gave him his own personal machine, because he had rented out all the others. And within a few weeks' time, they saw enough of a difference that they bought a machine from me and gave him the loaner back. And at that point on, I think it was about 6 months' time, she was pronounced entirely cancer-free.
Wow.
From go home to die, stage 4 cancer.
You know, George, it drives me crazy still, because we've talked about this in depth with people that go through cancer, and it's like, I mean, this is what's so frustrating sometimes with just the conventional system. It's like, okay, you know, here's your diagnosis. For some reason, they think that it's okay to tell you exactly what your time span is going to be to begin with, and that if they can't do surgery, chemo, or radiation, then sorry, you're out of luck. There's nothing left for you to do. Get your affairs in order, head back home, and basically plan on your 3 to 6 months. There's no thought that there could possibly be an array of other things that people could actually explore. and even to give them some inspiration or hope that there's something else they can do. I mean,
I
it's
don't think they're even allowed to say
no,
anything, to
they
talk about
wouldn't
it.
be, but at least you could kind of say, maybe there's other options, and I would suggest to explore over here and see what comes up. But yeah, I mean, this is why we have these types of conversations, because there's lots of other potential
Mhm.
options to look into. So
And not
sorry,
just for cancer. For
yeah,
virtually every
everything.
ailment, there's other mitigations, and a lot of them are the original ones. Like there's in the United States, there's a fellow, Shane Ellison. He calls himself the People's Chemist. So if you go to thepeopleschemist.com, you'll see him. And he was a pharmaceutical. He actually makes the drugs of the various kinds. He used to do that. And so he had access to the libraries of the pharmaceutical companies and the universities. And what they do is they go in and they find something like willow and willow bark,
Mhm.
and they make aspirin,
Aspirin from it,
and they just take a little piece of something that was natural so they could
patent
Patented.
it.
the drug out of it. But the aspirin gives you lots of gut problems and things like that. Whereas if you took the actual willow bark, it comes with all the phytonutrients and stuff that mitigate those side effects. So in any case, he discovered that this was in virtually all the drugs that were working out there. They were doing this. They were just taking natural ingredients and kind of um, Frankensteining them. And so he said, I can't do this anymore. So he went back and he started actually making up the natural original in, remedies, but he did it with modern techniques. So he would maximize the healthful benefits with the modern techniques, and so that if I was recommending anybody, and I get nothing for the recommendations, by the way, just the that's what I would do. I'd recommend if you want a pain relief or any of the other kinds of things that he lists on his website, that's where I would go. So the point is, and I want to say, I have over the years been wherever I come across, because in alternative energy, being an alternative energy researcher, I'm rubbing shoulders all the time with alternative health. Now, I never expected to really be a mover and shaker in alternative health like I am at the moment, but the what happened was I started writing these remedies down in what I call the book of cures, and it kind of focuses on cancer mostly. So if anybody out there has cancer or knows somebody with cancer and they write to me, you can go to aquacure.life and just fill out the email and write. I will for free send you the book of cures, and it has dozens of these remedies in it. So just as a little bonus there, you can people can have that.
You might get overwhelmed with emails coming at you.
I don't mind. I'm here to help. That's what
Mm.
I'm doing. So to continue the story, here I am laying on the floor, and the only way that I could get up off the floor, having figured out that I could possibly have saved this woman's life, was to say, God, I understand. This is my Jonah story. Jonah said, no, I don't want to do that. And just like I said, I want to be an alternative energy researcher. I want to invent free energy for mankind. But God is saying, no, I've put you on this Brown's gas path, and you're going to help people that way. And so the whale spit me up on the beach, and I'm laying there on the floor, and I said, okay, I'll dedicate maybe not the remainder of my life, but from now on until it's okay, I will dedicate my life to making everyone I can as healthy as possible with this Brown's gas. So I'm the little prophet out there, the Brown's gas, saying, hey, if you're praying and need an answer, here's an answer. And you've got a 1 year satisfaction guarantee to try it. If it's not working for you, no problem. Return it, get your money back. I'll turn that machine around to someone else that can use it. I get 1 in 1,000 people that buy the machine, send it back because it didn't work. 1 in 1,000.
George, we've talked a lot about Brown's gas, and I remember when I was going through some of your work, and I remember seeing the statement, what if there was a technology that helped people seldom get sick, help bodies heal 3 times faster, save 50% fuel, make your own fuel, and plants grow up to 10 times faster? I remember it was like, check, 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 check. For people that have been now hearing more about these stories around Brown's gas, can you help us explain what's going on with it? Like what is so powerful with Brown's gas, and even maybe the difference between Brown's gas and, molecular hydrogen, because some people might be familiar with that. But what is going on with it? How is it actually helping people to heal? And George, I have looked at some of the stuff through the Molecular Hydrogen Institute with Tyler LeBaron, and I think he talks about like over 170 different diseases that Brown's gas is able to be effective in supporting. So share with the audience what's going on with it. Why is it this powerful therapeutic aid?
Okay. First of all, Dr. LeBaron's website is probably one of the best hydrogen for health websites on the internet, period. And he consulted with me back in 2007 when he was still a medical student before he went to Japan to focus on hydrogen for health. And we had some good conversations at that point. So he's known me for a long time. And he focuses on hydrogen for health, not Brown's gas for health, just to clarify. He still hasn't seen enough of what he would call scientific evidence, although it exists, and he just hasn't really. He's probably like me and doesn't have time. Winnowed it out. Now I do have some people now hired that are doing the winnowing that I'm just going to talk about, where a lot of these hydrogen for health studies that they've done were actually using Brown's gas. And they just called it hydrogen because when you have an electrolyzer, it's making hydrogen and oxygen. They were just ignoring the extra oxygen coming out. They were just saying, okay, we're giving this much hydrogen. But it turns out that Brown's gas has an extra ingredient that molecular hydrogen does not. So you can have a traditional electrolyzer that takes hydrogen out one hose and oxygen out the other hose. It has a membrane in the middle, so the gases don't mix. A Brown's gas electrolyzer specifically doesn't have a membrane in the middle. So all the hydrogen is coming off the cathode and the oxygen coming off the anode mixes together in the same chamber, and all of it goes out the same hose. But because there's no membrane, a third thing happens that we didn't know anything about back in the 80s and 90s. Well, I just started to learn about it in the 90s. In 1996, I built an electrolyzer a transparent one, so I could see what was happening inside it, because I was very confused about one particular scientific fact, which was I was making 30% more gas than was theoretically possible, according to the Faraday equations. So Michael Faraday, over a couple hundred years ago, developed these various equations that could figure out how much gas should be able to be made when you split hydrogen from oxygen, make water split into hydrogen and oxygen. Has to do with the amount of electrons movement and that kind of thing. Nevertheless, I was making 30% more gas than 100% theoretically possible, so 130% gas. And even NASA was only getting up into the 70 or 80% range with their electrolyzers, and which I knew a lot about because, of course, I rubbed shoulders with William Rhodes, who was a NASA rocket scientist, okay? And they were using exotic metals and pressures and electrolytes and all kinds of things to get the electrolyte up high. I was using kitchen ingredients and a garage workshop and getting 130% gas. But I didn't have a membrane in the middle. I wasn't separating them into oxygen and hydrogen. So what was happening is and I didn't learn about this particular part, there's an electron bridge that forms between the cathode and the anode. And as the electrons flow across this bridge, it starts stuffing electrons into actual water, H2O. And that water absorbs enough electrons that it becomes a gaseous form of water that is not water vapor or steam. It's actually the fourth state of matter. It's called a plasma. So it's a negatively charged cold plasma. And this was the third gas that was being made. So it wasn't just the oxygen or the hydrogen. It was this, what I call electrically expanded water, this plasma form of water. And that's the magic ingredient of Brown's gas that oxyhydrogen or straight molecular hydrogen doesn't have. Oxyhydrogen is where it comes out, the oxygen and hydrogen come out their tubes and they remix it. And there's a lot of machines out there that have oxyhydrogen and they're calling it Brown's gas, but it's not, because it doesn't have the electrically expanded water. And it's easy to test, again, with Faraday equations. You just test the volume of gas to the amount of electricity going in, and all Brown's gas electrolyzers are going to be over 100%. Now, the really efficient ones will be up in the 130% like I have, but there are some out there that use technologies that they think are better. It's not. And it's a lower quality gas. They're not making as much electrically expanded water as they otherwise necessarily could. Okay, so we get back to this electrically expanded water. I call EXW. And this is not only, I'm going to call it the magic ingredient that makes more volume, but it's also what helps the gas, if you're burning it, cut steel 30% faster than acetylene because it oxidizes, it's got the electrons, it oxidizes the steel faster. It's what causes helps when you're doing the fuel savers like I was doing. It's one reason why the fuel savers with the Brown's gas work better than straight hydrogen, because it helped, again, break apart those bonds. It provided those electrons necessary to enhance the combustion of the fuel. But when you get into your health, it does a whole bunch of things, like those electrons stop oxidative cascade. When you have something that is missing an electron, it'll grab an electron from something else, oxidize it essentially, and then that thing doesn't have enough electrons. So it grabs one from something else. So there's a cascade that happens. Well, when you feed in the extra electrons that you need, and you can get electrons from earthing or TENS, some systems and things like that. But nevertheless, and you need these electrons. You get it from your food or whatever necessarily. In fact, even when you're doing sunshine, you're out in the sunshine, your body is changing the photons into electrons. So you're actually getting energy directly from the sun. In fact, hair, okay, human hair, animal hair, they were making solar panels using just hair. Yeah. So those cats that are sunning themselves in the sunshine, they're gathering energy directly from the sun, just like a solar panel does. Okay. So those electrons are really important. Turns out they're more important than anyone had any imagination for. There's a fellow by the name of Professor Gerald Pollack in the University of Washington. And he's kind of famous for something they call structured water or EZ water, exclusion zone water. It's actually a gel. It's not water. It's a H3O2 negative. Okay. It's a H2O. Whereas the Brown's gas, when it soaks up the electrically expanded water, when it soaks up those electrons, is still H2O. It's H2O negative because it's got a negative charge, but it's still H2O. So there's the fourth state of matter there. So you have your solid, which is the ice. You have your liquid water. You have your gaseous, which is water vapor or steam. And you have your electrically expanded water, which is the plasma form of water. So you have your four states of matter. And so the Brown's gas has the electrically expanded water. What they discovered, Professor Gerald Pollack discovered, was this exclusion zone. When water, pure H2O, comes against a hydrophilic surface, so water-loving surface, it will form this layer, exclusion zone layer. And he calls it exclusion zone because he was watching in the water with microspheres, and he could see that the spheres would be ejected a few thousandths of an inch away from the surface. And so this zone, and he measured it, it had a negative charge. Like I said, it was negative at the end. You can make actual batteries out of water using this technology and a whole bunch of other things. So you can look up the fourth phase of water, he called it. And it's actually phase 1.5, but in between a solid and a liquid. But that's the name of the book, and you can look it up, and it's fascinating read. Okay. The point is that all inside our bodies is hydrophilic. It's all water loving. So this gel solved three major medical mysteries. First of all, your heart does not produce enough pressure to pump your blood through the hundreds of thousands of miles of capillaries inside your body. It just doesn't. The second thing is the red blood cells are twice the size of the capillaries when it gets down to its smallest size. So how come it doesn't just stop it up like a cork? The third thing is, how come you have even blood distribution all through your body? From the top of my pointy head here to the tips of my fingers to the tips of my toes, all gets even distribution of blood. Anyone who understands physics knows that the fluid will always flow in the path of least resistance. So how come it doesn't just go from the heart into right around the thoracic region back to the heart again? How come it reaches all the way out to the tips and furthest extremities? Well, it turns out EZ gel solves all of those problems. The first thing is It's negatively charged, and like charges repel, and it's a gel, so it's very slippery. So therefore, the red blood cells are covered with this gel, and the inside of the capillaries are covered with this gel. So it makes the red blood cells can go into a sausage shape and just slide right through there. Okay, the second thing is having to do with okay, so that was the stop one. Okay, now you need an additional piece of information to solve the other two medical mysteries. One, Professor Pollack lab discovered when you have a capillary-sized tube with the easy gel in it, it will spontaneously start to flow fluid. No pump. This is really, really important. No pump. So all the heart has to do is get the blood to the capillaries or capillaries. I'm going to keep calling it capillaries. And the capillaries themselves suck it through and put it out the other side of the veins. It goes back to the heart. So all the heart has to do is get it to the area it needs to be, and it will. That's why it goes to the extremities with no problem, every extremity. And why the heart, even though it doesn't have enough pressure to pump through all these capillaries, the capillaries are doing the pumping. It's incredible. So then we get back to 2019, and I'm talking at a water conference in Bad Soden, Germany. And Professor Pollack, who happened to be in the front row, stood up and says, I know when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. He says, how's this Brown's gas affect Easy Gel? And I said, I don't know, but let's find out. But this is just before the pandemic, so the University of Washington kind of shut down our experiments that we were doing. But eventually we got through them anyway. And because the University of Washington is a very woke university, very, very woke. They get a lot of money from the pharmaceutical companies and stuff. So they followed every kind of protocol. Anyway, so we ended up doing most of the experiments outside the labs in people's homes and stuff like that, where the students were doing the setting up the experiments. But in the end, we discovered that when you put hydrogen in water, it doesn't affect the easy gel. When you put oxygen in water, it doesn't affect the easy gel. When you put Brown's gas in water, the minimum increase in the easy gel was 3 times. So here we have a gel, which is absolutely vital to life. And in fact, that easy gel is what plumps up your cells as well. It's one reason I don't have crow's feet anymore. And most of my wrinkles in my forehead are all gone and stuff. So the easy gel is essential to your life. 3 times increase in easy gel with the Brown's gas, up to thousands of times. It can even become visible without a microscope, the gel layer. Yeah, it was pretty incredible. So when I had this one Brown's gas bubbling jar that I never washed. I was just letting the gel build up, and it built up to you could easily see the gel layer on the inside of the jar. And it's an exclusion zone gel, so there can't be any bacteria or anything in there. It's probably one of the most healthful things you could possibly ingest. So
I was going to
not
say,
only does
even with the gel like that, George, would you be able to actually use the gel itself, like topically or something, when you build it up like that?
Sure, no
That'd be
problem.
like your new eye cream or something.
Yeah, probably. Yes. The person could figure out how to get that. And there's probably people out there that I haven't been. Oh man, no time myself. But there again, you do the scientific things, and along the way, you discover all these different side effects of things that are very interesting. And I used to chase those rabbits down their holes when I was younger, and I'd never get anything done because there'd always be one and another kind of
Yeah.
thing. So what I learned to do was, with my innovations, was to write everything down as much as possible and then put that in a box, put it off to the side, and then keep focused on what was actually going to make me money and feed my family or get the project done. And then I started to be effective as an inventor. Now, eventually I lost that box. I really don't have any clue where it is. It's probably back in PC somewhere in a shed. But anyway, not
Buried
a
under
worry.
a tree
I still have.
somewhere.
I've even had to recently because I'm 65 years old. I don't know how long I'm going to live. Although I will say that the Brown's gas, or sorry, hydrogen, some of it's Brown's gas, but hydrogen has been shown to get in rodent studies to get a 30% in one rodent study, a 50% life extension in another rodent study. So in other words, 150% lifespan. And in the third rodent study, which was actually rats instead of mice, the rats weren't dying. They were over 50% and they were still essentially healthy. But the study ended and they euthanized the rats. So we have no idea
Oh.
how long those poor little critters would have gone. Oh my goodness. I would have taken them into my own home. But so the point is, I'm 65. I have a bunch of experiments down in my lab that I'd like to do, again, with the alternative energy and stuff. But this Brown's gas is taking up 100% of my attention. And so I've had to let some of my projects go. I had an RV that I was putting all my alternative energy stuff on, but it was an older RV, and my current wife, which one of the things that happened was when I started to inhale the Brown's gas, my libido came back. And it was like I was a teenager again. It was interesting, but it's impossible to not care if you live or die, which is essentially what happens when you're grieving. I can tell you for certain. There were times when my chest would hurt so bad, and I'd realize I hadn't even taken a breath. My anatomic systems weren't even hardly working because I literally didn't care if I lived or died. And but when my libido came back, I started to care about living, and then I started dating, and I have this wonderful woman now who has seriously enhanced my life. I wouldn't even be where I am today without her input and the various things that she's brought with her. For example, this assembly of pipes that I was talking about, which was the ER50, she looked at that and she was using it. Okay, she was using it by the bed, but she said no woman wants this in her house. And I imagine she tolerated it from me because I was her husband and an inventor, right? But and it was showing a lot of health gains for people. She wouldn't even be here today, she says herself, without the Brown's gas because of the way that it's helped her particular health and the issues that she had. So and she's 5 years older than me, so I like the older ladies. What can I say? So we got. She said, "You're going to have to make it, look like something that could happen." Now, I did make it kind of industrial looking, with because what I did is I went back into my workshop and I got this Chinese chassis that I had bought from eBay. At the time, back in that time, I thought I was going to be out of business because here I was making water torches and selling them for thousands of dollars, and these Chinese machines could come in for a couple $100. I couldn't even buy the materials for that, let alone build the machine. And it's about my 1996 technology, so it's nowhere near as good as I could do, but it's good enough, and it does the job. And so what we have is I was able to rebuild the machine using essentially my experience in technology, and sell a machine for $2,500 instead of $5,000 that I would have had to pay if I were doing my own, and made something that she not only approved of, but it passes every safety certification, like standard, excuse me, every safety standard in the worldwide, Australia, Europe, Russia, doesn't matter. This machine is commercially solid. And of course, as I said before, I build machines so they don't break down. And because, first of all, with a lifetime warranty, I'd be indulged. I pay for the shipping, the labor, and the parts. So once people have the machine, they don't have to pay for any of that. If there's a manufacturer problem, I will get it fixed one way or another, and they don't have to worry about that. So if I didn't build good machines, I'd be swamped with machines, you see, because there's many tens of thousands of machines out there now, all doing their job. Okay, so the EZ gel is the magic ingredient that is the difference between Brown's gas, to answer your question, and hydrogen, just molecular hydrogen. Molecular hydrogen is good. I'm not knocking it all. Brown's gas contains molecular hydrogen, okay? More than 50% of the gas is molecular hydrogen. So how am I going to knock something that is already there? The difference is the Brown's gas has the electrically expanded water as well. The oxygen really doesn't do anything one way or the other. You get a lot more oxygen when you're inhaling just regular air than you're getting with the Brown's gas. But the electrically expanded water, it takes care of cytokine storms, for example. Like there were people with this latest pandemic thing where everybody was being all scared out of their britches. They'd go into a hospital and they'd have 70% blood oxygen, which it turned out that the virus wasn't a lung disease, it was a blood disease. And it's important to know this in order to understand what I'm going to say next. So what was happening is they were telling people to either go home until you're sicker and then come back, and then they'd put them on a ventilator in order to try to force oxygen into their blood. But the blood wasn't accepting oxygen because the virus had kicked the heme or iron or out of the hemoglobin, out of the red blood cells, enough of it so that the red blood cell wasn't grabbing the oxygen when it would go to the lungs. So you're having blood circulating that wasn't grabbing the oxygen, so you get lower blood oxygen levels. Well, pressurizing the lungs with the ventilators didn't help very much to get more oxygen into the blood. So they kept pressurizing higher and higher till they actually were damaging lungs. And then they were giving them drugs like that were harming the kidneys and stuff, and they were killing people. Now, most of the doctors did not realize that, and they're taught when you hear hoofbeats, this, as the saying goes, think horses, not unicorns. So here they had a unicorn. The issue had to do with the blood itself. Now, I ran across studies that showed this and what have you. So I learned that relatively easily or soon in the process. And of course, there were doctors out there trying to tell other doctors, but everything was being suppressed. I have lots of suppression stories too, by the way. We can have some fun with that. But and what would happen with these is that Brown's gas turned out to be the #1 treatment in China for that pandemic. And China was like 3 months, and then they were up and running and having parties. And well, we shut down for a couple more years. It was crazy. So in any case, what would happen is as soon as people started to inhale the Brown's gas in the Chinese hospitals, within 5 minutes, their blood oxygen level would come up, and just like cannulas, like I'm wearing right now. There's nothing exciting, no ventilators involved. In fact, I think it was the American or the Canadian government just threw away $1.2 billion worth of ventilators or something. That was the vaccines. Sorry, but the Canadians did approximately over $1 billion of ventilators. They just trashed because they had them all built, but no one needed them. So anyway, now they're paying storage, big warehouses full of. It's crazy. So in any case, as soon as you start to inhale, within 5 minutes, the blood oxygen levels were coming back up. Within 3 days, they were walking out of the hospital completely well. So the people that would go in that would normally be put on a ventilator, what would happen is as soon as they started to inhale, the Brown's gas would first of all treat the cytokine storm in the lungs because they'd waited so long that now they'd had a lung problem, okay, and inflammation in the lungs. And so the electrons in the Brown's gas and the hydrogen would immediately soothe that inflammation, and then the electrons would get into the blood. And when the electrons would attach onto the red blood cells, it would give it enough of a charge to accept the oxygen with whatever iron was still left there, that then the oxygen blood levels would come back up. And then, of course, all the other side effects that people would have from low blood oxygen started to mitigate, and they'd start to feel better. And so as they were inhaling, everything came back up. Their body's immune system turned back on and got rid of the virus in the blood, and they'd walk out of the hospital fine. Isn't that incredible?
It's fascinating. And you just wish that these kind of things were more, well, I mean, that gets into a whole nother story. It's why people a lot of times just have to have access to certain things on their own, I think, because you can't rely on it to be always available in conventional capacity. But so essentially then with the Brown's gas, you're getting the benefits of the plasma state of water, which makes everything kind of move through the body a lot more effectively. And then you're also getting the effects of the hydrogen, which has its own antioxidant, anti-inflammatory effects on their own. So you kind of get this combination of those two things. And And I think when I think about it, like even from a concept of like voltage, like Dr. Jerry Tennant's work with cell voltage, it's like this is one of the ways that you literally start to recharge your cellular battery. And when you're doing that, that's what stimulates that natural healing ability again. You got to get voltage back up to be able to actually start that whole process. And this is one of those, I think, a really powerful venue to get that voltage back up.
That's absolutely correct. And it's important to understand our bodies are 62% hydrogen, 24% oxygen, 12% carbon. So why are they calling us a carbon-based life form? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Okay, just ignore the water. Okay, so and 2% everything else. And the important thing as far as ailments are concerned is that people that are sick have usually used up their energy reserves and or their energy generation systems have become compromised. So what you're getting in addition to the hydrogen is the energy at the same time, because hydrogen is a building block of life. But like a brick, it doesn't do anything without energy and intelligence. So you need those three things. You need the nutrition, the energy, and the intelligence. Your body is intelligent. It knows how to heal given the energy and the materials it does. It just does. It's absolutely fascinating. Every time I go into there, it's like a whole world of amazement. So your body knows what to do. It just needs the nutrition, which 62% of us is hydrogen, so it's our major macronutrient, which most of us are not getting from our food. Okay, and that's a story we can get into really quickly as well. And then the third thing is the energy. So just supplementing with hydrogen alone isn't going to give you as much benefit. It's being shown in the studies that I'm seeing so far. The Brown's gas is about 30% more therapeutically effective over just straight molecular hydrogen. And the reason being is because of this extra energy. That's the magic ingredient. Okay, so just quickly then, people say, well, where do you get your hydrogen? Well, you get your hydrogen from your food. Most of it is hydrocarbons. So again, just like the fuel you're burning in your engine, it's hydrocarbons, and you need to break the hydrogen off from the carbon. The hydrogen-carbon bond is very strong. So our digestive systems have developed a whole series of things to weaken that enough that it can be broken. So the first thing we do is we masticate our food. We chew it up really well. It's supposed to chew it 100 times and put a lot of enzymes in there. And then you swallow it, it drops into an acid bath that does some more digestion thing there. It goes into your lower intestine. Your liver throws in some bile. You get your microorganisms start to work in there. And by the time your food reaches your colon, okay, large intestine, just before it's ejected from your body, there is specialized bacteria, or supposed to be specialized bacteria there, that do the final breaking of the hydrogens from the carbons. Because of all the enzymes and catalysts and stuff that have been done, it can actually happen. So your microbiome is breaking off the hydrogens. The hydrogens go straight through your colon wall into your bloodstream, and that's how you get your hydrogen. Which brings us back to a Japanese study where Japanese are obsessed with long life and health. Rightly so, because if you don't have health, you have nothing. So the Japanese did a study of families that generally were short-lived in their 50s, dying in their 50s and 60s, and then ones that were long-lived, lived over 100 years old. And they found the one common denominator was that the 100-plus-year-old families had excess hydrogen being exhaled from their breath. And the younger ones that would die younger, no hydrogen. So when your blood is saturated with the hydrogen, you exhale any excess. It's also important to understand when you're inhaling, you have to inhale at a rate that is safe, and there's no reason to do more, because as soon as your blood is saturated, which happens at the 2% level that I'm inhaling in about 10 or 15 minutes time, as soon as your blood is saturated, you exhale any excess. So there's no sense to do more to get over that 4% combustibility limit. So back to our centurions and young people that die. The younger ones, their microbiome obviously wasn't digesting their food properly, and they weren't getting the hydrogen they needed to even have enough in their blood to have hydrogen being exhaled. Whereas the older ones, like the rats that we were talking about, had plenty of hydrogen and lived long, healthful, and active lives. It's not like you're living over 100 years old tied to a artificial respirator or something. You're out there playing with the great grandkids. This is what I'm looking forward to. But nevertheless, I still had to give up some of my projects that I near and dear loved, because I didn't have time to store everything, and my wife calls me a pack rat and a hoarder and a few things like that anyway. But I need my books. Come on. I have gotten rid of 3/4 of my library because most everything I can get online now. I don't look at. I do have a very old 1919 set of encyclopedia though that I will not let go of. They're almost in pristine condition, and a full set of Mark Twain's books, and all right, call me an old guy. I do like the classics, but there's things I discovered in those encyclopedia that aren't taught today.
Mhm.
The old remedies and the way they looked at things, and you could take that and make inventions these days. Like a lot of the things I learned about mechanics, I learned on my own before I went to mechanics school. I was making vehicles that went over 30 miles to the gallon before I went to mechanics school, and I was then teaching the teacher how to do that, and it was a very interesting time for me. Well, all my life has been an interesting time. What can I say? It's working out.
No, no, I think it's like gold having some of those old sets of books because,
I'm actually looking for an old
yeah.
set of encyclopedia because I've learned that too, in that it's changed so much that even the knowledge and the information that is truly valuable is just not been included in the more recent encyclopedias.
Yes. And
Well,
that's what I've discovered when I was doing my mechanics books, was a lot of what I knew wasn't in the books. They're not teaching the mechanics how to do these things in the most efficient way possible. They're just not. And so the mechanics go out there thinking they know what they're doing, and all they've learned to do is fix what's given to them. They're not being innovative out there. And that's the same sort of thing I was finding with the encyclopedias and the older information as well. Sorry, I interrupted you.
no, well, that's one of the things I really appreciate about true inventors is like they're not satisfied with the answers until and they're not afraid to try to figure it out themselves. And there's a drive that kind of keeps them going until they figure out the next piece. And honestly, without inventors, it's like, I mean, I feel like you need to have inventors to actually think outside the box. Otherwise, everybody would just be living in a certain box with people telling them what to do, and they wouldn't question it. So,
Which is kind of what's happening out there.
yeah, exactly. And so I
But
really
the
appreciate that because then you question it. You're like, okay, well, what you're saying doesn't actually work as well as this. And then people have a hard time trying to even get out of this because then they've got this sort of thought construct that it needs to be a certain way. But it's like, but in real life, this is what's going on. But then, we can't kind of connect those dots. So I appreciate the kind of work that people like yourself are doing, because I really do think it does a great service for humanity as a whole. Um, George, how does it tie in with plants? Because you were talking about how plants can grow up to 10 times faster. What is the relationship then with the Brown's gas and the hydrogen and the sort of easy water, and how that plays in with specifically agriculture? Because that's a huge thing. I mean, we talk about right now, a lot of people talking about food shortages and even outside of food shortages, just being able to have your own healthy food that you can create. I mean, one of the reasons why we're out here is because we were able to create, large garden area and grow our own food and take care of our own chickens and do this kind of stuff because we really appreciate it. But growing your own food is a whole important piece. And we've been playing with a lot of different aspects of water and structured water and whatnot with our own agriculture. But I'd love to hear what's going on with Brown's gas with agriculture.
Okay, so to start with, two things that we've already discussed, because we're water-based life forms, and even the redwood trees, which grow, I don't know, 150 more tall, they get the water from the roots up to the tips of the leaves. Remember the tip of my little head up here, pointy head? Okay, the capillaries. As soon as you get the EZ gel, the capillaries pump the water up to the leaves, where water vapor kind of goes out and creates enough of a vacuum. You get your that's what the heart does. Is it starts the process, gives it a direction to go. So the trees know which way is up, and the capillaries go that way, and so it goes to the roots up. The second thing is the hydrogen. When you put the hydrogen in the water, just like us, the plants are over 60% hydrogen, and their digestive system is outside their body for most of them. There's a couple, I think, Venus flytraps or something may have some digestion inside their body, but generally the roots depend on a microbiome. And in the forest, they have nervous systems, a mycelium of the various fungi. So there's a whole living thing going on there when you have a forest. But the root system has its microbiome in its own soil. So all the different kinds of things that are biodigesting there and making it, splitting it to get the hydrogen. So in soil, the plants are growing 3 times faster. Now they didn't grow any bigger. If you go to my website on a page called of eagle-research.com, so Eagle Research with the dash with the hyphen or dash mark in the middle .com, you'll see a page called Plants Don't Lie. In fact, you could probably look it up. Just Google "Plants Don't Lie," and it'll bring you to that page, and it'll show you the pictures of the plants that were growing in both the soil and they grew up, and then in the hydroponics. And the strawberries growing in the hydroponics were already fruiting before the hydroponics without the Brown's gas was even just kind of getting their leaves going. So 10 times faster in hydroponics.
So that's wild. So it would have to be hydroponics then to use the Brown's gas. You couldn't incorporate that in like a garden or something along those
Yeah,
lines.
you could do it in a garden. There was this guy who had a total garden, orchard, the whole thing, and just with a small, essentially an ER50, which is essentially an AquaCure volume-wise, he just had these 45-gallon barrels that he had his water in, that he would cart around to be watering the various parts of the garden and stuff. And man, I tell you, the difference is absolutely incredible. Ground that was just getting regular water, the plants would just be kind of just barely poking up, and the ground right next to it, same plants, lush greenery from the Brown's gas. It's absolutely incredible. And it goes on to the fruit trees and everything. Everything grew better, faster. So I don't know where you are in BC, but where my dad's ranch is, we couldn't quite get 2 hay crops a year. But if we put in the Brown's gas, and my brother's just putting an irrigation up on the ranch now, if you put the Brown's gas in there, we would be able to get 2 crops of hay a year in those northern latitudes.
Wow.
How do you add it to irrigation? Do you add it to the main water line?
Yeah, you wherever you're getting the water from, so you'd make a tank that the pumps would pump from, and then you would bubble the Brown's gas in that tank. Now that tank would have fresh water coming in, and it'd have the Brown's gas bubbling in it, but the pumps for the irrigation grab it from that tank and pump it
I
out.
see. Okay.
I know even just what we've found with incorporating different levels of structured water and whatnot with it, we see like a pretty substantial difference. So I'm always looking at what other layers can be added onto that because I think that's a really important piece.
So as soon as you put in the Brown's gas, your structured water will increase by 3 times or more. Just like that. Easy
That's
peasy.
fascinating. You know, you'd mentioned before a little bit around suppression of some of these types of technologies or sabotage, even government investigations. What's been your experience with that? Because I mean, it's not like we haven't seen aspects of that, particularly the last several years, but even different conversations we've had with different inventors, with different people, written books on free energies and whatnot. I mean, they've seen it firsthand. And what's your experience with that? And where are we maybe now? And are we moving in a different trajectory?
My experience with the Brown's gas for health has been no problem so far. Okay, now I'm starting to see some twiggles because I pay attention to these things. Like I know that my communications are being monitored, for example. But back in the late 70s, early 80s, when I was doing the fuel savers big time, I was doing it out in the bush. What people would consider bush was actually alongside a major highway at that point, and we actually had phones and electricity. but it was a party line, and the party lines out there. And in order for me to have my business without the neighbors picking up the phone and interrupting my conversations, you guys know what party lines are, I assume. You're,
No,
no?
can you speak a little
Oh
bit more?
no, I'm showing my age.
I remember hearing about party lines, but
Okay, we didn't have rotary dial phones like this, but we did have the rotary dial like this. But in any
No,
case,
we
what would
remember
happen is
those.
you'd have a phone line, but the phone line would be shared by 4 families. Okay, and that's so they're calling party lines. Everybody could have a party, I guess. But anyway, when the phone would ring, it'd ring in all 4 homes at the same time. And when somebody could pick up a phone and somebody else is using a phone, you could hear their conversation. Okay. So in order to have a private conversation and a fax machine, because so people didn't want to be listening to the fax beeps when they stuff like that. And or if they picked up the phone when my fax was trying to come in, it would interrupt the signal and not getting it. So in order to have a business, I had to buy all 4 lines of the party line. Okay. So I essentially had my private line. Back in those days, it was actual operators doing analytics, and I was having troubles with my phones, and so my phone, and so I picked up the phone and I called dialed the operator, and the operator said, "Okay, we'll run a diagnostic," and she said, "Oh, there's somebody else on your line." And then she must have realized what was going on because there must have been some sort of notifications in the phone companies or something about when lines are tapped. But I said, no, there's not. I have all 4 of the party line. So my phones were tapped even way back then. And I was being followed around. I caught people tailing me. I had, and then, but as far as so that was a lot of maintenance stuff. I even found a tracker on one of my cars on so that they knew where I was going and stuff like that. And I remember one time their laser on the window was a little bit too, they didn't, it was too bright or something, too intense. And it caused the window to crack from from the heat. So this is the kind of things that were kind of going on around. I saw people in the woods above our place, binoculars and what have you. But the main thing and then I had 7 government investigations of my business back then, Eagle Research, 7. Okay, just because I sold fuel savers, they all fizzled because there was not one unhappy customer, not one. Because again, I offer a money back guarantee. If it doesn't work for you and you're not satisfied, send it back. I'll refund your money. Okay. I can't, as far as the AquaCure goes, I can't say anybody's going to get any particular medical benefit because I'm not an MD and it's not a medical device. So I just simply have to say, if you're satisfied, send it back. You're literally inhaling and ingesting what's supposed to be in your body anyway. There's absolutely nothing toxic about it, as long as you keep it's not toxic, but it's combustible, so keep it under that lower combustible limit. But other than that, there's nothing that could hurt you. So anyway, as far as the fuel savers go, I invented fuel savers. There's nothing way they could hurt an engine. And if people didn't install it right or something, or didn't even install it at all, and then they'd send it back and get their money back. But again, that was really rare. The point is that no state attorney general, no government like Canadian Consumer and Corporate Affairs or the state attorney general of Idaho or any of these other people that brought investigations for my business could find a single customer that was unhappy. So all the investigations just fizzled out. But most of that time, I was just selling inexpensive carburetor enhancer kits and books. Now, the reason I was selling books is because I went to one of these late night talk show things back in the day. They may still have similar things like that, but wait, there's more kind of thing. The wanted to sell the fuel savers, which they saw were working really well. It was an hour hood up to hood down, and would get a minimum of 25% increase in your fuel mileage for about $15 worth of parts.
What?
wow.
Pretty much pay for itself in 2 or 3 tankfuls of fuel. So it was a good fuel saver. In fact, one particular guy who bought my book drove into my yard in an RV, said, I bought your book. I put 2 mechanic shops to work. I was installing these carburetor enhancers until I got enough money to retire. I bought this RV. I'm now retired. I'm driving around. First place I came is to you and shake your hand.
Aw.
Oh.
I made $8, but I did that 200,000 times, so I was okay. So
That's
but these late night talk show people evaluated it, and they said after they made the commercial, I have a VHS tape of that commercial, and it was a really nice commercial. But they said anybody could go to a hardware store and buy the parts and do it themselves. We would be bypassed. So they wanted control. See, they wanted this control.
Mm.
So they dropped the project. And then I went to the Idaho State Patent Repository, Idaho State University in Moscow, Moscow, Idaho, and I did research. And just 5 years back from where I was doing the research, I found 5,000 fuel saver patents. Okay, the inventors are out there doing the job. Okay, not one on the market. So
Mm.
between those two things, I wrote up a little book called the Carburetor Enhancer Manual, and I started selling the book. And the book sold really with very little suppression or anything like that. And I was probably getting some surveillance even then. But it's when I started selling those kits, those carburetor enhancer kits, I started getting the severe uh, um, um, monitoring of me. And then I came up with a thing called the HICO 2A, which people can still buy the book and build their own off my website. And the HICO 2A got 100% increase in fuel mileage. And I was selling the book, and that was fine. When I started selling the kit, everything went sideways. Meaning that I got up to about a $5,000 a month range where I was selling the kit, and which wasn't a lot. I mean, but it was a good living for me. And at the time, now with 40 people, $5,000 work doesn't go very far, I tell you. But anyway, I went off to write another book at that particular time. And I've got 24 titles, so I was off doing a little sabbatical. My mailroom was told if a customer doesn't get their product within a month, it's probably lost, just reship it. And that happens maybe 2 or 3 times a year. The mail loses something in my business. Well, it turns out that by the time I got back from my sabbatical, 100% of the customers that they had been shipping out for weeks had not received their first kit. They just lost somehow. Okay.
Mm.
And this was the US postal system and the Canadian postal system at the same time. This is an international thing. Okay. So I said, this is weird, but now I'd sent out my 2 of these HICO 2A systems to every customer. I said, we have enough. I had to shut down the business. I had enough to send out a third one. I went to the post office with all these packages, dozens of them, and shipped them off again, insured for 3 times the value. So so I would be able to get all my money back. Because back in those days, you could do that. Now they tell you to prove how much the value is, and they won't allow you to insure it for more than the actual value. But back then, I thought, okay, I'd be back in business because I get all my money back from the post office who was losing my products. Well, it turns out every single one of those third shipments, oh, excuse me, just 1 second. I went a month into the thing and said, okay, here's all my receipts. Give me my money. The customers haven't got it yet. They said, no, you have to wait 90 days. So 3 months they have to deliver before they have to pay the insurance. So I went in at 90 days and have submitted all the receipts which was quite a pile of them, I tell you. And then it turns out every single one of those customers, without exception, received their HICO 2A system, and then 3 days later received a letter saying, can you verify that you received this package? Every single one. So those insured ones were just set aside somewhere. God only knows where. In the United States and Canada.
wow.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was out of business. I was many thousands of dollars in debt, and it took me years to recover. So
All to try and help
yeah.
people save fuel.
Yes.
God forbid you do that.
Yeah. I have lots of stories, but those are
Wow. George, it's unbelievable. I find all of that really fascinating. And I'm sure we could probably go on for hours talking, and we'll have to do another get together and go through some other things because I think this is all really important work. Sort of in closing, we're asking all of our guests just around this concept of living freely, and just from all of your experience, even just from the life experiences that you've had, both of being an inventor, being a husband, all of the different things that you've gone through, what would be some wisdom you would pass along to the audience as far as this concept of really living more freely and what that means?
Well, first thing is listen to your wife. Don't. The second thing is your health, the health of you and your wife. Nothing is more important, period. Without your health, you have nothing. You can't work, you can't think, you're a drain on all of your resources and every resource around you. Take care of your health. Do whatever is necessary and put a priority on it. Take care of your health. The third thing is energy. If you learn, oh, sorry, no, skills, knowledge. Knowledge is one thing they can't take away from you without blowing your brains out, I guess. But if you have knowledge, you can do amazing things, even in with most limited circumstances, and you can have everything taken away from you. I've had it happen 3 times in my life, and you can regain it all back if you have the knowledge. Think of it this way: 2 people get $1 million, one by winning a lottery, one by earning it doing their business. Both of them lose their $1 million. Which one is going to get back their million first?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, don't bet on the lottery guy. Okay, it doesn't say that.
Mm-hmm.
The point is, you can survive and be comfortable and be healthier if you have knowledge. So the first thing is listen to your wife. She's going to give you insights. And you know what they call a man with half a brain?
What?
Gifted. We're good for lifting things. We're good for following instructions. We do occasionally think of something. A man generally has one good idea a day. And I always regret it when I have that one good idea first thing in the morning. But I have a wonderful, intelligent wife. The second thing is health. Do what you can to get your health. And I'm helping as many people as I can do that. And then the third thing is learn stuff. Learn new things every day. And it's a good idea to learn things that are important to survival these days because we have some hard times coming up, some really hard times. Learning martial arts is not a bad idea. It helps your health and it helps you take care of yourself at the same time. Just do those sort of things. Invest in yourself first. It's not like a bank account where they can take it away. Like in Canada, they shut off so many people's bank accounts during the trucker convoy thing. Man, that was scary.
Yeah.
And you can lose stuff really easily. But you have your health and your knowledge. So those are the 3 things I would say first. I have 2 or 3 others, but we can end there this time.
I think that's really sage advice.
Thank you.
We'll make sure we've got that link that people can click on in the show notes. So whether you're hearing this on the podcast or on the YouTube video, you'll just come over to the YouTube video and we'll have the link there.
And out of curiosity,
or in
George,
the show notes.
Out of curiosity, the I think what did you call it? The Heiko 2A system, is that still available as well? Are you still selling
Not
that?
as a kit,
Okay.
because I ran out of time to do anything but the AquaCure. I could literally, these guys are working, and I have people working at home and stuff like that. We've got dozens of people now building these machines, and we're in the process of setting up systems to increase by 10-fold. Because for some reason, every time I manage to increase the business, the manufacturing capability, the amount of people asking for them increases as well. And I'm just barely staying ahead of, having a bit of an inventory. And there's been times when there's been a 3-month delay because people would, I talk on a show like yourself, and people would order hundreds of the machines, more than my capability. But now I've increased 10 times since then, and I'm going to be increasing 10 times more. But it seems like God has a plan, and it doesn't seem to matter how much I increase my business. It just people are keep buying the machines as fast as I can build them.
I think we're going to have to purchase one from you as well to have as a feature within our spa. We call it a spa. We think it's helpful for people to come in and just have an experience and kind of have stations set up and experience different stations as they spend half day or a full day here. So we're definitely going to have to
Yep.
purchase one
Or
of
when
your
people come and do healing immersions and they actually come for a week and it's
Retreats.
just really
focusing on
focused on a
healing.
lot of the different areas of physical, mental, emotional, spiritual
I am
health.
certain that you have a radiant heat system of one kind or another, like infrared
Yeah.
type thing.
Yeah.
Infrared is also one of those things that increases the EZ gel layer.
Yeah.
And so the infrared is a perfect synchronicity with the Brown's gas. Also, my wife, wonderful as she is, one of the projects that we didn't have time for, but she made time for anyway, was what we call the microbubbling system. So you can take an AquaCure, and right now you can bubble into bath water, and she was doing that. But she said, how do we get more in there? So I did the research and found the most practical microbubbling system that you could put the Brown's gas into any tub and turn it into a spa. And so it's good as Japanese. So you get like 100 times more Brown's gas in there, in the water, and your body can just soak it right in through your skin in the water. And so anyone with anything like I had arthritis at one point. I haven't even gone through the long list of things that I was mitigated. But if you go to AquaCure.life, you'll see the long list. I can't even remember everything that was wrong with me. Like I have no more scars on my body. All my scars are gone, like because it turned back on the stem cells of my body and that kind of thing. So anyway, just so you know, we're coming out really shortly, probably by the next time we talk, the microbubbling system, and so that people can turn their own bathtubs into like spas for these with the Brown's gas.
Awesome.
That's fascinating. We'll have to do another chat when that one comes out and talk more about that. George, I think we covered everything there, and that was fascinating. Everything we can for the moment. But
Yes, we did that.
but go check out the aquacure.life. You can learn a lot more by reading through everything. You can hear more of George's story. And George, thank you so much for being a part of the series.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me on. I so appreciate it. Thank you.